way going forward, while those of us who had yet to start, or had barely started, froze in our tracks. Death had gotten the jump on me this time. I was worrying about it before I'd even come up with a fully formed idea for a novel. What was the point of starting if I wasn't going to be around to finish? This didn't necessarily mean I believed I was going to die of the coronavirus any more than I believed I was going to drown in the Atlantic or be eaten by a bear. But all those scenarios were possible. The year 2020 didn't seem like a great time to start a family or a business or a novel. Of course, I was still writing essays. I'm always writing essays. 800 words on owning a bookstore for a newspaper in London, my 10 favorite books of the year for a magazine in Australia, an introduction for a newly reissued classic, maybe a little piece about dogs. Essays never filled my days, but they reminded me that I was still a writer when I wasn't writing a novel. That was how I found my loophole. Death has no interest in essays. Why hadn't I noticed this before? When I wrote my first essay collection, This is the Story of a Happy Marriage, Death didn't even bother to rattle the windows. The book was so ridiculously personal that I worried only about whose feelings I might hurt and gave no consideration as to whether I might step on a snake. I realized that for all the essays I'd written in my life, I'd never once heard the ethereal shush of a scythe being sharpened nearby. Had death wandered off because no immense cast of imagined characters could be obliterated? Or was it because the things I wrote about in essays were true, verifiable? Were I to abruptly exit in the middle of writing an essay, there would be someone around who, with a certain amount of research, could bring it to conclusion. They might not write it the way I would have, but the same facts would be available to them. Or maybe the facts themselves were the problem. Imagination can be killed, but facts are infinitely harder to snuff out. I know it might not seem this way. Time works tirelessly to erase facts. This country works tirelessly. But facts have a way of popping up, their buoyant truth shining all the more brightly with time. Maybe that was why death wasn't interested in essays. Essays don't die. I decided to go all in. I began to write longer essays, and I wrote them for myself. Why the sudden desire to get rid of things? What did it mean at this point in my life not to have children? Other essays came out of conversations I had with friends, most notably the piece about my 3 fathers. After my friend Kate's father died, she told me she was going to write about him. I'd been thinking of writing about my own 3 fathers for 15 years, but had never found the courage to follow through. I asked her if I could tag along. Writing is such solitary work, but in this case, her companionship made me brave. It wasn't until I wrote the title essay, These Precious Days, that I realized I would have to put a book together. That essay was so important to me that I wanted to build a solid shelter for it. I started writing more essays. I went back and looked at other pieces I'd written in the past few years. Most of them I ignored, but those that were the strongest I took apart and wrote again. It's a wonderful thing to be able to go back to something that's a couple of years old, see the flaws in the fullness of time, and then have the chance to make corrections and polish it up, or in some cases, throw the whole thing out and write a better version. That's something I never get to do with novels. Through these essays, I could watch myself grappling with the same themes in my writing and in my life. What I needed, whom I loved, what I could let go, and how much energy the letting go would take. Again and again, I was asking what mattered most in this precarious and precious life. As for death, I have remained lucky. Its indifference has never waned, though surely